Hi fashion lovers, you're welcome to another interesting video. In today's tutorial we are going to be learning how to make a long fitted pencil skirt with the hip and butt allocation. So I'm going to teach you how to leave more space at the back of your skirt to allocate your hip and your butt. We all know that the bum, the hip is at the back. So I'm going to show you how to cut your skirt using a very simple method to create space for your hip and your butt at the back, and the front part is going to be shorter. The front width is going to be shorter, but the back width is going to be bigger to accommodate your hip and your butt at the back. This method, I've been using this method for years and it has been working. So this is what we are going to be learning today. And if it is something that you want to learn, you need to keep watching this video. After this tutorial, you'll be able to create a skirt, a well-fitted skirt that will fit your customer perfectly well. If you're interested, let's get started. To get started, you want to cut your front part. So you want to go ahead and fold your fabric and cut it out. So the width of the fabric should be able to cover half of your 1/4 of your hip measurement plus 3 to 4 inches sewing allowance. The width of the fabric on fold should be able to cover 1/4 of your hip measurement and 3 to 4 inches sewing allowance. Then you want to go ahead, mark a starting point line. From there, mark your hip line, waist to hip line, waist to knee, and waist to the length, with 2 inches for the hemming allowance. So my waist to the hip is 9 inches, my waist to the knee is 22 inches, and the full length I'm working with is 40 inches plus 2 inches for the sewing allowance. Did you see that? So this is my starting point line, which is going to serve as my waistline. So on that point, I want to mark my dart. So to get my dart, I will mark half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 7 divided by 2 is going to give me 3.5. So you mark 3.5 and come down by 6 inches for the front dart, and then ½ inch on both sides of your dart and connect. So that was what I did. I mark a dart of 1 inch. So I'll go ahead and input 1/4 of my waist circumference, which is 26 divided by 4 will give me 6.5. I will add 1 inch for my dart and then 2 inches for the sewing allowance. So that is what I marked on the waistline. So we'll go over to the hip now for the hip allocation. So the front, my hip is 38 inches. So I'll just go ahead and divide into 2. Did you see? 38 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 19 inches. So 19 inches is for the front, 19 inches is for the back. But the front does not have the butt, the front does not have the hip. So but that 19 inches that I have, because my fabric is on fold, I will go ahead and divide it again. So that 19 inches that is half of my hip, I will divide it again and I'm going to get 9.5. But I will not be marking the 9.5. I will go ahead and mark 8 inches. So 1.5 inches that I remove from the front will be added to the back. Let me just give you a quick formula on how to get this. So how to get this is, if you are working with a client or a customer that the waistline, the waist circumference, and the hip circumference, the difference between the waist circumference and the hip circumference is 5 inches and below, you will go ahead and remove 1 inch from the front hip and add to the back hip. If the difference between the person's waistline and the hip line is 6 inches and above, go ahead and remove 1.5 inches from the front and add to the back. And if the difference between the person's waistline and the hip line, that means the hip line, by the time you subtract the waistline from the hip line, the difference is from 12 inches and above, go ahead and remove 2 inches from her hip. from our front hip and add to the back hip. I believe you understood what am saying. So in my own case, my waistline is 26 inches and my hip line is 37. So the difference is 11 inches, and because I'm a slim person, I subtract 1.5 inches from my hip, my front hip, and add to my back hip. But if the difference is between 11, 12 and above, and the person is a bit bigger, we are going to subtract 2 inches. So instead of marking 9.5 inches, which is my 1/4 of my hip measurement, I marked 8 inches. So I subtracted 1.5 inches. So my 1/4 of my hip measurement is 9.5, but I subtracted 1.5 inches from the front, and I'm going to be adding that 1.5 inches to the back. So that is how you get your hip allocation method. Did you see? So I marked 8 inches instead of 9.5, and then 2 inches for the sewing allowance. The 1.5 inches I removed from the front hip, I'm going to be adding it to the back hip. So whatever I have on my hip, I will come to the knee and remove 1 inch from it and mark. So if I have 8 inches on my hip, on the knee I will mark 7 inches plus the 2 inches sewing allowance, and whatever I have on the knee, I will bring it to the length of my dress. I'll bring it to the length of the dress and the length of the skirt, and the hem. So that is how to get this hip allocation method. Very easy, very simple, and it works. So I've made a video earlier about this hip allocation method, and this is the video, and people that use that method gave me beautiful review of how their skirts fit their customer, fit them perfectly well. So what you want to go and do is, from your waistline connect to the hip, from the hip line connect to the knee line, and then mark 2 inches sewing allowance, connect that sewing allowance. Trust me, using this method to cut your skirt will give you a beautiful result. It's going to give you a beautiful result. From your side seam, raise it up by half an inch, and from the center front of the skirt, come down by 1 inch. Just the way you do for your skirt. Raise the side seam up by half an inch, and from the center front, come down by 1 inch. I want to say that I'm cutting this skirt with the band, so I do not remove any allowance for the band, because this skirt is going to be a bandless skirt. You can cut out your band from the skirt if you want to have a band, but for this skirt I'm not having a band. So if I'm going to have a band, before taking my measurement, I would have taken out the band measurement, but because I'm cutting with the band and everything, so I didn't remove any allowance for the band. It's going to be a bandless skirt. So what you want to do is, as you are cutting the waistline, you are adding half inch for sewing allowance. You can see, add half inch for sewing allowance on the waistline, and then go ahead and cut out your fabric. So when you are done, this is what you are going to have. Did you see that? So you want to go ahead and cut out the back. So for the back now, you want to fold the back in such a way that it will be able to accommodate all the allowances you are going to be adding to the back hip. So you're going to be folding and making sure you have at least 7 inches extra after you mark your hip measurement. So I have marked my starting point line, which is my waistline, and from my waist to the hip, which is 9 inches, I've connected, and from my waist to the knee, so this is my knee measurement, which is 22 inches, and then I'll mark from the waist to the full length, which is 40 inches. So that's what I'm trying to get, then plus 2 inches for the hemming allowance, and then I'll go ahead and connect my lines. And when you are done, you want to go ahead and mark 1 inch for the zipper allowance. So let me just bring it close for you to see. So I've connected 1 inch for the zipper allowance. So after the zipper allowance, you want to come inward by 1 inch. You want to come inward by 1 inch and then go up from your hip line by 1 inch and then connect. This is going to give you a well fitted back. This is, contouring the zipper part. So after you finish marking the 1 inch, after that 1 inch, you want to go ahead and take your dart of 1 inch and then you want to, connect the dart, and the dart should stop 2 inches above your hip line and then you connect. So on the center back, I went inward by 1 inch, did you see? And then slanted it to meet the hip. So I will just clean up the initial zipper allowance that we marked so it will not confuse me. So this is the 1 inch. I went inward and connected it back to the hip line. This is going to give us a flat, make our skirt to lay down flat at that point. So you want to go ahead and mark 1/4 of your waist circumference plus 1 inch for your zipper, plus 1 inch for your dart allowance and 2 inches for your waistline, 1/4 of your waist measurement, 1 inch for that and 2 inches for your sewing allowance. So my hip I'm working with is 38 inches divided by 2 again is going to give me 19 inches. The reason why I'm doing this is so that you won't get confused. So that 19 inches, go ahead and divide it again. It's going to give us 9.5 inches. So go ahead and mark your 9.5 inches on your hip, and then the 1.5 inches we remove from the front hip, add it to the back hip. Please don't forget the 1.5 inches you remove from the front hip, add it to the back hip. If it is 1 inch you remove in your own case, you add back the 1 inch. If it is 2 inches you remove in your own case, you add back the 2 inches. After adding it, you want to go ahead and add 2 inches for your sewing allowance, and from your waist you go ahead and connect. So I've made a detailed tutorial on how to get this, skirt for different measurement. This is a general measurement, but we have different specific measurement. You can go watch the video, especially if you are a fashion tutor. It's going to help you to be able to teach your students. So this is what I have after I was done connecting. So the next thing is that on the hip line, on the knee line now, after the zipper allowance, you go inward by 1 inch and connect it straight to the hip line. You come down from the hip line by 1 inch. Do you see? This is just to shaping our skirt. Go inward from the knee line by 1 inch and connect it to the hip line, but don't get to the hip line. Stop 1 inch before the hip line. I will go ahead and clean up the zipper allowance to avoid confusion. I'm going to remark the zipper allowance, but I'm going to be following the curve to remark it. So you want to go ahead and mark like this. So at that point, it's going to give you a curve. So the next thing is whatever you have on your hip, you minus 2 inches, subtract 2 inches and mark on the knee line. For the front, we remove 1 inch from our hip to mark on the knee, but for the back, I will remove 2 inches from the front, from the back hip to mark on my knee line. So whatever I have on the hip, I will remove 2 inches and mark on the knee line. This is going to help me to shaping the knee. I'll add my 2 inches for the sewing allowance. And whatever I have on the knee, I'm going to go ahead and bring it to the hem part. Whatever you have on the knee, make a straight line to the hem part. Whatever you have on the knee, you want to go ahead and mark it on the hem part. With that straight line from the hip, from the knee, mark to the hem part. So I will go ahead and check what I have on the hip, on the knee line, and then I'm going to bring it to the hem part and then add the sewing allowance of 2 inches. Do that on the hemming allowance as well, and then I'll go ahead and connect. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to connect all my lines. I connected from the hip to the knee to the hem part, and also the sewing allowance of 2 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add 1 inch for my zipper allowance on the center back. Did you see? So you're going to follow the curve and add 1 inch so that you'll be able to have that, curvy shape at the back, and well fitted shape at the back. So the curve that I have, the way the back is, I'm going to go ahead and mark 1 inch and connect, following the curve, and I'll go ahead and connect. So the next thing you want to do is from the side seam, you raise up by half an inch and then connect to the waistline. You just raise up and connect to that line. So you're not coming down on the down part by 1 inch like we did at the front. So you just raise up by half an inch on the side seam, and as you are cutting the side seam, you want to add half inch for the sewing allowance on the waistline. Add half inch sewing allowance for the waistline. Then you want to go ahead and cut following the curve. So did you see, cut out the curve here? Did you see? This is the hip line, and then continue with your curve. Did you see that part is going to have a curve? Then go ahead and cut through it. So by the time I'm done, this is what I'm going to have. You can see has a curve. So I've gone ahead to cut out the front part on the lining, and I folded the hemming allowance for the front part before cutting the lining. So the lining does not have the hemming allowance. So I also did that. Okay, I first cut the back. So this is the front. I folded the hemming allowance of 2 inches before cutting on lining. So I'll go ahead and sew the darts. Did you see? I've gone ahead to sew the dart. So the next thing is to place the lining. I've also sewn the dart as well of the lining. Place the lining, the good side of the lining will face the good side of the fabric, and then you want to go ahead and sew the down part. So for the back down, I have sewn the dart for the back. So the next thing you want to do is from the zipper side, you come down by 8 inches or 9 inches depending on how long you want the zipper to be, and then mark. So that part is where you're going to fix your zipper. Just make a straight line. I marked 8 inches, and then I'll go ahead and mark 19 inches, and that is the part I'm going to sew. The rest is going to be my slit. So I'm going to sew in between after the zipper to that 19 inches. I'm going to sew by 1 inch. That is the only place I'm going to sew. The other part is going to be the slit. So I use the pin to pin it down before doing this, and I've sewn the dart for the back. So this is the front part that I've used lining to sew the hem part. So after you are done sewing the hem part, you can see because the lining does not have the same length with the front, so the lining will be shorter. So you want to push the lining to the waistline like so, and then go ahead and sew the waistline by half an inch. And for the back part, I've sewn the zipper area, and this part is going to be my slit. So this part is going to be my slit. So you want to flip it to the right side. You want to place your lining. The right side of the lining will face the right side of the fabric, and you sew on the down part by half an inch, on the hemming allowance by half an inch. And this is the front part. As I've gone ahead to sew the down part and the front part. So you want to align your lining together, align it together, and then you want to go ahead and sew the side seam. You can see the fabric will come out a bit towards the lining side. You can see that. Did you see? So this is how it's going to be folded. So the two sides together. And for the back part, I have sewn the down part. Then I'm going to bring the lining up to the waistline for the back part and sew by half inch. The reason why I'm sewing the waistline is because I'm not going to be attaching a band. So for the front, I've sewn the side seam. As you can see, did you see? This is the down part, how the down part came out. So I sew the the side seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the side seam a bit small to turn it to the right side. So you want to open the side seam a bit and then turn it to the right side. So after I was done, this is what I have. Did you see? This is the right side of the front. Did you see? I have turned it to the right side, and this is the waistline, how the waistline looks like, and the side seam. So that place that I opened up to turn it to the right side, you want to go ahead and stitch it. Stitch that part, fold it and stitch it. And this is the back part. I've sewn the waistline and the down part. So the next thing is to arrange the lining well, to sew the side, to sew the slits now. So you want to match the lining and the main fabric on the slit where the slit is going to start, and then you want to go ahead and stitch one side of the slit and also hold it at that point and stitch the other side of the slit. Did you see? So you arrange it well in such a way that the lining and the fabric will meet together. You sew one side of the slit. I've gone ahead to sew that and sew the other side of the slit. Then you want to also arrange it and sew the side seam. So arrange it well like this and go ahead and sew the side seam of the back, the both side seams. So after I was done, you want to now go ahead and look at what I have after I was done sewing. So I've sewn all the side seams. So from that zipper side, I'm going to bring it in. Did you see? I'm going to turn this to the right side. And when I have to bring it out to the right side, this is what I'm going to have. Did you see? Everything is fine, well sewn. You can see the waistline was stitched. So the only space we have is that zipper allowance, which we are going to be attaching our zipper to. So I'm going ahead to iron my skirt. Did you see? This is the back part. Did you see? And this is the front part. So you're going to place it right side of the front will face the right side of the back, and then from the shoulder, from the side seam now, you arrange it and push it to one side and sew the side seam on one side. And when you are done, you push the other side seam of the front to meet with the back and sew it right away. Did you see? You sew it, and when you are done sewing, this is what you are going to have. I've sewn the side seams, as you can see. Did you see? I've sewn the side seam. So the next thing is to attach my zipper. You're going to go ahead and grab your zipper and attach your zipper, and when you are done attaching your zipper, you are done for this skirt. So this is the best method to get your skirt doing your hip and butt allocation, allocating more hip to the back than the front, and this is going to give you a perfect fitting. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. Please like this video. Please leave a comment for me. If you have a question, leave your question on the comment section and I'll answer it. Don't forget to share this video. Please do well to share this video. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Bye bye.